We have an incredibly diverse panel talking about building art NFTs from the ground up. So without further ado, please give a warm round of applause for Tim, Nathan, Leah, and KJ.
Hello? Hello?
Is that working?
Hello, is that working? Can you hear me? Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So, really excited. On the panel today, we have the founders of 3 incredible artist-founded projects, Power of Women, Avril 15, and Trench Pets. If there's any doubt about the impact an artists have in this space, I'm just going to throw out a couple of facts to you. So our collective artworks has seen the trading and minting volume of 700 ETH, and we have a community of 60K strong. I mean, that's pretty incredible, isn't it? So let's jump straight into it. I hear the word innovation quite a lot, but never sort of like in conjunction with artists. So my question is, how are we as artists innovating in the space? Maybe Tim, maybe you can jump in.
I think, like, I can't speak for other projects really, but for Avril 15, it kind of started as like a personal project, like, you know, for me and Nathan. And, you know, we just kind of tried to make that obvious as we've gone. Like, this is a personal kind of fun thing. And I think the more that kind of shows, you know, that kind of seems to resonate with people, you know what I mean? Like, if it's obvious that you're passionate about it and you're really interested in it, and it kind of is interesting for me and interesting for Nathan, I think people can tell. You know what I mean? It shows in the work a lot of the time. And, you know, it's just, you want to create a fun thing. It's like a little niche fun thing that people will be like, oh, that's cool. I want to be part of that thing, you know? And does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, a bit of authenticity, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking from the heart as an artist. And I think that's really easy because you're creating something. There's a sort of pureness to that, isn't there?
Yeah, kind of. Like, I think, yeah, there is that. And I think what's weird as well, like the Avril thing, like, because it's not kind of like me being an expressive artist and kind of, you know, pouring my soul out onto the page and that kind of thing, which people like, and people do. But we've kind of made a bit of a almost like character-driven, its own weird thing, and so in that sense, it's slightly different. So there's almost like a, wouldn't say branding side to it, but there's like a interesting kind of narrative sort of side to it too, which I think is quite cool, and it's just a bit different. I think I haven't really seen much of that stuff when we started, a kind of a character-driven NFT project, and that just seemed a pretty cool way to start it, really. You know, people seem to like it anyway.
Nice.
You know? That's good.
You are incredibly influential in the space. But let's jump to KJ, because you're an artist, you're a dev, you are an ambassador, you're a speaker, you're a tutor. I mean, like, what does innovation mean to you? And also, you're 15.
Yeah, just okay. So, being on the younger side of the spectrum, obviously. Oh, it might be off. Yeah, thank you. So being on the younger side of the spectrum, innovation kind of, means something different to me. I've been doing art for, I could say, a pretty long time. Art has had a sentimental meaning to me because I have ulcerative colitis, so I'm chronically ill. And, my way to cope when I would be in and out of hospitals was to just do art. So thank God I found out about NFTs because it was the best of both worlds for me. Not only was I able to do art, but I was able to, code and stuff like that. Because in the state of Massachusetts, I live in the U.S., coding is actually mandated. So, that I felt like that was pretty good. I could take on the challenge. And I think in 2 or 3 months to my, career, because I've only been in here for 8 months, I started developing in Solidity, and I was able to develop my own smart contract for my project, Trench Pets. It was pretty amazing. It did do, a little bit of mints. My first project, which is KJ Robots Co., which is my one-of-one collection, actually did a lot better in sales. And I could say around, like, when we were in a bear market, I could say we were doing at least, one sale every day. But when we were in a bull market, we were doing at least 3 sales a day, and that was something pretty major for me at the age of 14, because I was 14 at the time. So now, fast forward, it's 8 months in. I've been speaking at various places like NFT VIP, Expoverse, Crypto Connect, you name it. And I've met some pretty awesome people. I was able to become ambassadors of many places, just like Leah said. And I was also able to start tutoring kids how to do 3D, 3D sculpting, because that is something I learned too, and how to code in Solidity as well. I'm also doing something for fine artists, which is going to be something major. So they've had their works collected by a lot of famous people, so that's going to be something big. And yeah, that's just a little bit about how I'm innovating in the space, and I'd love to help, show to the other people that, hey, nothing can stop you, no matter what age you are, no matter what condition you are, because I'm a chronically ill 15-year-old. There are some times where I just feel like, I can't do this, but, you got to keep pushing.
Oh, that's it, really incredible. I mean, I find that really interesting. I think, Tim, you're talking about sort of art, coming at from an artist's perspective and coming from a place from the heart. I think I know that you're a dev, and I know that you do a lot of speaking engagements, you do a lot of tutoring, but there is sort of an artist's heart to it, because you are, coming from your story, aren't you? I feel like with Power of Women, we have always been a platform, through art, we've just sort of found this sort of platform where we decide, our art became a platform for people to talk about their sort of untold or underrepresented stories of being a woman, of womanhood. And, for us, I find it really interesting, you're talking about technology and how you're innovating in sort of your dev work, because, for us, it's like, well, there's a beauty in sort of like that experience when you mint, and also there's a beauty in the experience of collecting a one-to-one, because there is that authentic story. But then as a mint, there is a collective community, and it's about how do you bridge those two things. And so, looking forward, we're, looking at creating a generative project where you're able to evolve and create a dynamic, have a dynamic collection where you can evolve your PFP so that it better represents you as a woman. So if your PFP could become a mum, if you're a mum, like there's something really special, and there's like a relationship between both that artist story, but also leveraging that technology. So it's really interesting sort of to hear your stories behind it. So I'm going to jump to you, Nathan, because if Tim's the face of Avril 15, you are sort of like its voice.
The beating heart. The
beating heart of Avril 15. I think there's, you can't get away from the word community in this space. And I think one of the things that I, hear a lot is that community is the pillar of any successful project. So I'm just wondering, what does the word community mean to you? How are you harnessing your community from Avril 15? Because regardless of the market, you seem to have this sort of almost cultish, community around you.
It's not a cult. It's not a cult. Don't think. I guess I'm very lucky that, first of all, I work with Tim. We've talked about building this from the ground up. We've known each other for a very long time. So I'm very grateful that I've got his work to work with and to promote, I guess. But for me, I think community is a word that has not started to lose its meaning, but I think people need to be careful about what they mean when they say it. I think that a community, for me, is a really healthy space where people that buy into you, but you also need to be giving back to them. I think that is what makes a proper community. I think that you can confuse community with customers quite easily. I think a lot of people do. So for me, it's important that, we sort of work in cycles due to the way that Tim creates. So we'll have about 3 months where we're promoting, we are Avril 15 and we're on a launch. But then there is time where that's not the case. So I think when you're not in promotion mode, you should be in support mode. And I think that it's really important that you look after the people who have been there for you while you've been switched off with supporting them, and they are sharing your work. So when the time comes that you're not doing that, you are then doing the same for them, because that's how things should be. You need to look after the people that are invested in you. And that to me is, I guess, what I would say the core of community would be in my answer.
Well, I mean, there was one time really early on where I think you sort of like threw, I think, the word community sort of like apart for me personally, because you said, I'm not here to build community, I'm here to make friends. And I think for me that was just like, oh, you know, that like, I think that changes things, because I think there's the term community, but then community is also your market. But then from an artist perspective, it's a patron, it's a collector. And these are all the same things. These are all people who are buying your art, but then these are also friends that you're making, real friendships that you're connecting with. And I think that's really important, isn't it, like for you? Because like Avril 15 famously, you know, you collect and you spotlight underrepresented sort of like artists in the space. You are supporting artists who have, you know, who may not have the same sort of amplification that perhaps that our projects do. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that we were very fortunate. We started nearly 9-10 months ago, so we were in it was easier to get traction then. And I think that now I've got so much admiration for the people who are working now. Like, it is hard. It is so hard. And I know the hours that it takes to do that. So I wish that when we started, someone had helped. You know, not helped. Loads of people helped, but I wish there was something that stood for what we needed. And I just thought that it makes sense. Back to what we were saying about giving. If you take, you need to give back.
Yeah.
And to see other people succeed because we've helped them means more to me than just having them there when we want to sell them something. That's not important to me as much.
I mean, I think that feeds off the culture of what Web3 is all about, isn't it? It's like, there's space for everyone. It's not just about self-serving yourself by helping other people you help. And I think you do that without having to talk about that. Do you know what I mean? You just do that organically.
I hope so. I hope that people think of Avril 15 as, you know, we're talking about building a project from the ground up. I hope that people think of us as a project that supports that.
Yeah.
And I think they do. And if they don't, then I'm really got this all wrong. Because I think they do, and I hope so. I really hope so.
I mean, I think as well, it's like artists quite naturally are quite shy, not very good at selling themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I've always found that being an illustrator, kind of a lot of people are quite shy and aren't going to get themselves out there and shouting about themselves. And I'm awful at that, but Nathan is good at that, you know? And so it's nice that he can do that for other people and just kind of keep on, because you kind of feel a bit silly just constantly trying to push your work out there onto people, and, you know, you feel like you're
a salesman.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not nice to do that, but, you know, to have someone like Nathan do it, you know, or to have, you know, like an account like ours do it, it's just helpful for people, you know what I mean? It's just, I think,
Before I jump to KJ really quickly, I think there's a beautiful connection that we've never had before with, you know, the relationship between an artist and a collector, because you are actually having that conversation that I think didn't exist, certainly for me, didn't exist in my creative career before. I mean, how is community feeding into your work? Because I know that you have some interesting things about season 3 for Avril.
Yeah. Like at first, when we first started, like, it felt like a bit of an experiment, you know, and kind of had an idea of where it was going, but didn't ever anticipate the community element playing into it as much as I think it will now. So for, you know, season 1, we were just kind of mucking around, and, you know, season 2, just trying to build on that a little bit.
Muck around a little bit better.
Yeah, much better, yeah. And now it kind of feels like, okay, we've got this really supportive community around us, that how can we integrate that a little bit more into the artwork while still, you know, keeping it what it is and feeling fresh and kind of feeling something that will hold people's attention, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so jumping to KJ, because I think it's interesting, because I think, like, I know us, the way we sort of entered the space at a similar time, and I think we came, you know, there's a very much of a one-to-one vibe, and our spheres have always been one-to-one. But I think KJ, you have a very sort of, I think you come in a very different perspective, because you are, you know, you are an artist, but you also really promote yourself as a dev. But then, you know, you do all these speaking engagements, and it's not just the dev work or the artwork that is sort of the community building. It's actually your speaking engagements, your educational aspects. So, I mean, what does the word community mean to you? And, you know, how has that sort of changed, in the market since you've entered the space?
So I'm actually going to be completely honest about this. I would prefer, me personally, I feel like I prefer the bear market over the bull market any day, and here's why. Back then, I used to have sales all the time. Like, it was something like that was just regular for me. Like, oh yeah, I have a big community, they're all supporting me and all that stuff. And, then when we started to go to the bear market, things started to slow down, like, majorly, and I started to get discouraged. I've even felt like I wanted to quit sometimes. Sometimes we would go 2 months, 3 months without any sales, and I would feel really discouraged. That's when it clicked in my mind, like, community isn't about the sales. It's about the connections that you make along the way. So I've started, going harder on Twitter Spaces, going harder in, like, these speaking engagements, and just trying to find a way to make connections because, when you make a sale, you get that money now, and then what's going to happen next? You're going to spend the money, and then it's gone now. But, when you actually make the connection with somebody important, they'll get you to a place that you probably would have never reached before if you did it on your own. Like, the saying, teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever, and then, give him a fish right now, he'll only eat it now, and he'll starve or something like that. So that's kind of the premise about, what I'm doing right now. And also, community for me, I like to develop friendships with the people that I meet along the way. I don't call them my customers, I don't call them my collectors. I try to keep close tabs with everybody, well, not everybody, but as much people as I can as possible, because I know that, they've helped me and I can help them back. It's not just like okay, you give me money. I kind of want to see, hey, you bought from me. Okay, why did you buy from me? What do you want to see from me? What's next? So that's kind of the premise of what I'm going for when it comes to community and what community means to me.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think you've very different experiences of what, like, how I guess you would call community building. And it's interesting that I really agree. I think during this current market, there's these meaningful sort of like DMs when someone says, oh, I've bought your artwork, and about how it has really truly impacted them. And I think all of that can get really lost in the noise of like everything happening all at once in the bull market. But I think it's been interesting for Power of Women because, we sort of exploded during the bull market, and I think what was really incredible was, at that time it was very a bro-ish space, and I think the turning point for us was when we decided to create a collection inspired by real women in the space, and we said, like, what does motherhood mean to you, and what do you think we don't talk about enough in terms of motherhood? And like the response was incredible, but we were, not only was it about women finally feeling like they could talk in this space about them as a woman and not just as a person in the space, but I think also the fact that everything is so open, and there was the Twitter spaces where no one sees your face. There's an ability for you to open up, and I think in the bull market for us that has been really incredible is that we're hearing incredible stories and really personal and really heartfelt stories that I don't know whether we could get that same engagement that we do in this current market, but I think there's a sort of beauty in the sort of connection that we were able to make in that market. And then there is also a sort of quietness that we can actually build now, or create a collection, or take more time to create artwork that is a little bit more meaningful. So yeah, that's been really interesting. So I really love this sort of...
Do you feel that the connections you have now are better with people than you had earlier on because you've had the time to cultivate them?
I feel like there has been incredible stories that I heard in the bull market, and it would happen in these like amazing Twitter spaces, and we'd get like DMs, but I feel like there was no follow through. Like you couldn't, whereas now I can say like some of my collectors I can actually call friends now. And I know that, if I go to Germany, I could say, oh my God, yeah, I'm in Germany, let's meet up for a coffee. And I would actually meet these people. But, it's like, I feel like there was a sort of movement that happened in the bull market, but I feel like there is a true sense of connection now. I feel like there is a true sense of investment, like a patron. I feel like community is not the right word now for Power of Women. I feel like patronage is the right word, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
But we've got 4 minutes left, so let's do a takeaway question. successful artists and projects in this space, I feel, are ones that have sort of grown organically, authentically, because we talk about, really starting this project from the heart, but also projects that have been incredibly agile. I know a lot of, it is a tough time at the moment. So what do you think has been, your key to success for Avril, for UKJ? Like, what has been, why do you think you have seen success in this space? And, what can other people learn, or what can other artists or founders learn from what you've experienced?
Don't be a cult.
Just try and speak a bit more. I don't know. I think the fact that we're kind of lucky, me and Nathan have each other and are kind of doing it together because we've been best friends for a long time, and that comes through a lot, like in our Discord server and to members of our community and that kind of thing. I think people and it creates quite a nice atmosphere in the whole community because we're friends and we can kind of take the piss out of each other a lot, which you can't really do to people you haven't met before online much. You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of that and that kind of it kind of creates a lot of warmth around the community and around the art, and people seem to really like the vibe between me and Nathan, I think, as well as the work and the art and stuff. But
I feel like there's a vibe. I mean, there's a friendship that I think people see and people want to, be part of. But then there's also the sort of, but I think the artwork speaks as well, because your artwork speaks to a sort of nostalgia of your your childhood. So it's not just that relationship between you and Nathan, isn't it? It's also that sort of all these sort of references in your art of you growing up.
Yeah, there's lots of those. Yeah, there's lots of that type of thing. There's lots of music references and reference to other kind of bits and pieces that I kind of really love and we both really love, and that connects us together. And the idea of that as well was to so people would recognise certain things and come on board if they had similar interests and the same things we did. You know what I mean? So hopefully that would start off a good community with a similarly minded people. Nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't completely planned out, but I thought that'd be a cool.
No, but I think you're building I know authenticity is a word that's being thrown around a lot, but I think you're building on that, aren't you? There's an authentic relationship. People want a part of that. People want a part of that through your art. But what about you, KJ? What has seen to your success, and what can other people learn from you?
I'm not going to say that I'm successful yet because I haven't reached my full goal, but I feel like I'm doing pretty great. A lot of people...
Yeah.
I feel that it's sad. I've seen a lot of my NFT friends, they've quit because, they've had high expectations, and that's a mistake that a lot of people make in this space. Have low expectations, and I promise you one day will be surprised with something unexpected. I've been flaked out many times for something, and it's been disappointing. So once you keep your expectations low, I'm sure you'll build up tough skin, and you'll be able to, make your way out. And, like I said, connections. It's not about the sales at all. That's not what you need. The connections are what you need to prosper. There's this thing that I read that, 90% of people who are either gambling, entrepreneurs, or anything like that, they quit right before they're about to become big. So just keep pushing, and maybe you may be that 10% who makes it out.
Amazing. Well, we've got 20 seconds left, so we're going to have to cut it short. But if you want to have a chat with us or you want to find us on Twitter, we are Power of Women NFT, Avril 15 NFT, and K&J Robots Co. So if you have any questions for us, please have a chat with us. We'd love to have a chat with you. But we need to end the space. There we go. All right. Thank you so much.